Some of the places, for example, where we struggle to transform duality into a unity is our upbringing. We may say to ourselves, why did I have to be raised by parents like that? Why didn't I have the opportunity that somebody else had? Why did I turn out like this? Why did I have to go through the things that I went through that seemed so unfair? The comparison of the self, perceiving contradictions in what we think is good or right, and what inevitably befalls us. Our north node is where this duality is consistently a crisis. And that is because at the north node, the life path, which is not to be misunderstood for the heart soul urge expression, the life path, it unfolds at the north node through fate. And if we should be in tune enough to meet that fate with the intent of the heart soul urge expression, we now have destiny. If we fail to do so, we have karma that educates us to catch up with what that destiny is to mean, so that we are in comprehension and present with the unfolding of it. Too often, when fate manifests, we think that the circumstances are misfortunes, setbacks, blockages, denials of what we know we are calling in. It's all over. Woe is me. But if we can endure the seasons, we will see that there is an intention behind every fated experience and outcome. It was intended to arrive you at a state of consciousness and understanding, a condition of character, fortitude, wisdom, experience. It was a season in preparation for the next incoming season. But how impatient we are. How impatient we are. We only see duality and we stop there. If we could become curious instead of despairing, if we could become more curious instead of so judgmental about what we're going through, labeling what we go through, naming what we go through, with all of the vomit of our imagination. Prophecy fulfilled over and over again from the imagination. Woe is me. Convert to curiosity. The curiosity that stays with and studies the duality long enough to arrive at wisdom. Ah, I see why this had to happen. I see what this was in preparation for. I understand how this was a necessary step, a necessary season in preparation for where I am now. I see that I had to be who I would come to save later. I see that I had to become who I was looking for, because surely those after me will be looking for the same person, and here I am. wisdom. We fail to arrive at love in the same way, inserting our attachments and our fears. Instead of being present and curious in the moment. From whence does this come? What does it mean? What is constructive about this relationship? What are the opportunities in this relationship? What am I learning from this person? How does this person's personality, behavior, outlooks, the differences that they have, how does it positively affect my growth and development? But how foolish we are to think that what is positive, it carries a good feeling every time. Surely, growth and development, it carries pains and discomforts, vulnerabilities, even shock, traumas. If we could only remember what growth really means. If we could only remember what it takes to mold and shape, form a new character, to purge the body. A person manifests in your life to fulfill either one of these things. We give up the ghost and we say, oh, woe is me, this is a bad person, negative vibes. Oh, you should leave that person. You should divorce that person. That person's no good. They're not making you happy. How foolish this society has become in some ways. We're missing the bigger picture, the picture of unity. Everyone doesn't come into your life with the effect of Venus. Some bring Saturn, and you need Saturn. Some bring Pluto, and you need Pluto. What would you be without Pluto? What would you be without Saturn? But you want sugar. You want honey. You want sweetness all the days of your life in every experience. And then wonder why you end up with rotten teeth, diabetes, obesity, and everything else in the spirit. Empty calories. The immaturity in our body. There's a unity in everything, and that unity includes recognition and acceptance of what is truly valuable for our life journey. The medicinal value that carries bitter tones. There's a unity in it. It's serving a purpose. It has value. Value is not limited to what you desire. Value is not limited to what you like. That is the mind of a child, and we must rid ourselves of that portion of the childlike mind and adopt the curiosity of the child's mind, not the immature disposition of the child's mind. If someone is good for you in your life, it's going to bring bitter notes. It's going to bring challenges to the character and the ego. It's going to bring transformation to the psyche. It's going to challenge the perceptions and attachments of the mind. It's going to provoke vulnerabilities and insecurities as we grow. How are we thinking? Let's explore Gemini, Uranus. emphasizing Gemini. The third house, Gemini, this is your source of wisdom and love. It's the source. This is where wisdom and love begins as something that you create, process, bring to maturity, and understand. Gemini is a process. Mercury ruled in the same way that Virgo is a process of refinement. Gemini is the process of wisdom and love. What we have to always take note of is that detachment is the detail here. What comes after Gemini is Cancer. That is where love is demonstrated. That's where love is practiced. That's where it is given and where it is received. That is where wisdom is embodied. And it's not by coincidence that the moral compass, compassion, empathy, care, advocacy, all of these things is what helps us to express that. The third house, or Gemini, in your natal chart, this explains how you go about processing knowledge and relationship interactions into wisdom and love. It's also where you provide the moon or your intuition with memory, intuitive insight, because it's the perception by which you remember things. It is what you remember in your intuitive perception. It is how you remembered it. The third house. That gives rise to the fourth house, the crystallization of your conclusions of duality, experiences outside of yourself, and people outside of yourself, and what you remember of their behavior, their nature, or those experiences and their circumstances. And most of all, what we remember is how it made us feel. That culminates into the fourth house experience. So you should already see that there's a sharp correlation here with Uranus and Jupiter, as Uranus has just entered Gemini and Jupiter has just entered Cancer. Uranus is going to bring a lot of disruption to the third house themes and experiences, including Gemini themes and experiences. And Jupiter has enough capacity to convert it all into wisdom. And Jupiter has enough capacity to convert it all into love. What we are doing indirectly is we are creating an advanced culture through Gemini and Cancer, because Cancer is where we sustain culture. And culture is reflected by the wisdom and love that we have formed from our Gemini algorithm and experiences. Your third house and my third house could be very different. So how you arrive at wisdom and how you arrive at love could be very different. But nonetheless, the third house in Gemini, it requires us to be detached. The child's mind, which is the third house, it's a detached thought process when it comes to its curiosities and experiences. Attachment doesn't form until intuition informs that attachment. And intuition, that is to reflect the sun's pathways, to have a reflection of where your experiences have taken you, what you recall. This could be cognitively, this could also be in our motor skills. You fixed a car so many times, you could do it with your eyes closed. That is intuition. The disruption of Uranus is going to bring enough shakeup to cause a great depth of wisdom and a greater depth of love. The shakeup through Gemini in the third house, it indicates that many new experiences are coming. Experiences such as we have never ever experienced before. We are entering a reality that has no familiarity to our being, and it's going to make us collectively very curious. And as we experience that new reality, which could include AI technology and other advancements, is going to lead to a very unique culture. Gemini ascends to Cancer. At the third house in Gemini, where Uranus is now going to be transiting, you will need to remember that you are a journalist in this area of your life. It's not for you in this area of your life to take any matter personal. It's not for you in this area of your life to attach to anything that manifests. You have to remain as air, formless and shapeless. Uranus can give you sudden success or sudden failure. It can give you sudden ups or sudden downs. No one can predict Uranus. In the same way, no one can predict Gemini. This is a whirlwind of experiences. You just have to remember, take nothing personal at the Gemini placement. This is where experiences will overwhelm. It will be continuous. There will be no consistency, stability, or predictability at your Gemini placement. And you have to remember not to fall into the illusion of duality. But if you can remain detached, not attempting control, not attempting to covet, not attempting to keep, be present with the experience, receive the experience, and open your mind to a curiosity that allows you to come to wisdom with what you're experiencing and to come to love with who you are experiencing. If we make the mistake of getting attached to any experience that comes to Uranus, you are going to suffer. Through Gemini, Uranus is here to teach us innovative outlooks on the value of wisdom and love. And we cannot do that bringing toxic attachments into these experiences. We have to allow Uranus to fulfill its unpredictable nature, knowing that whatever passes through this theme of the house, third house, or Gemini, it is experience. It is only experience. Do not covet. Do not keep. Do not possess. It is experience. And you are the journalist. A journalist. It's not your community. It's not your subject. It's not your tribe. It's not your matter. It's an experience that must pass through you because you're going to need the wisdom and you're going to need to know the love so that you can manifest an enriched culture at your Cancer placement. Embodying it, not just saying it. With Gemini representing the lungs, remember that Gemini is impersonal. I'm emphasizing this. It's impersonal. We can't get there in a clingy format. Gemini representing the lungs, you inhale and you exhale the breath of life. If you inhale without exhaling, you will die. If you exhale without inhaling, you will die. The point here, you do not own the air. Just as you take it in, you have to release it. Just as you release it, you again have to find the natural flow of receiving and giving, receiving and giving. The heart cannot close, the lungs cannot close to this process, because then you stop the enrichment of life force in the body. That is Gemini. You can't close yourself off to new experiences. You also cannot close yourself off to introspect and solitude. It is a duality, but you must have both, the inhale and the exhale, the introvert and the extrovert aspect of the self. It is complementary, but it's not personal. You are the journalist in your life in this area. With the Gemini-Uranus transit, we're going to learn to transform duality into unity, such as through finding the connection and the common ground between what appears to be two different worlds, two different forms, two different realities, realizing that spirituality and my evolving life and all of the experiences in it, it is one intention. And it has always been one intention, and it always will be one intention. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever befell you. You have never had a single experience that was not measured as part of your spiritual evolution. Gemini-Uranus transit. Let's walk down some meaning here so we can connect, so we can relate. First off, Gemini. This is the third sign, the third step of evolution. Gemini, third house. This is where unity appears to have separation. It is where singularity appears to part ways. Thus, the lungs, the arms, they are archetype of duality in the body. In this archetype of duality in the body, in which Gemini rules the lungs, the arms, and the hands, you see that it's a mirror, and they appear to be opposites. They appear to be separated in physical form, but united in will, purpose, and function. Your left hand and your right hand is separated in form, but its unity is in its function. The lungs have a left and a right chamber, as well as upper and lower and mid chamber. But its function is where the unity is at. This is an example of that duality where things appear to have separate wills, separate cause, separate purpose, separate value, separate function, separate being. They can't possibly be interconnected because they have separate forms, they have separate bodies. What wisdom teaches us What understanding teaches us is that although there are separate forms, what it accomplishes is unified. It is a singularity. To produce the breath of life, to speak a word, to connect, it comes from two lungs, but it's one mouth, one voice, one being. Your left hand and your right hand they're in opposite position. They're the first representation of duality and what we perceive of ourselves in physical form. What is interconnected is how they function. So likewise, esoterically, the same value and meaning applies to every experience of life. You may think that your work life, your home life, your fun and enjoyment, your spirituality, your physical fitness, the argument that you just had, the good time that you just had, what you just purchased, what you just consumed, what you were reading, what you were listening to, what you seen, what you said. You would think in first glance, because all of these experiences have different forms, you would assume that they can't possibly be interconnected. But they are. And Gemini is where we manifest the wisdom to understand that. It is the pairing of wisdom and love through information and communication, inspired by curiosity. Love and wisdom is what Gemini is out to accomplish. Wisdom from the head, love from the heart. It's the motive for its curiosities. In communication and in relationships, it's the motive. The curiosity behind its intellectual initiations and communications is simply to arrive at wisdom. It is the soul's impulse to seek wisdom. The curiosity from the heart, it initiates relationships in order to witness love. Again, the basis is curiosity, not attachment. Curiosity. What does it do? What can it do? and why. It's the who, what, when, where, why. It is where we become curious about what is outside of the self. Third house, Gemini, third sign. Who and what is outside of my being, outside of my existence. And who and what is outside of my existence, it manifests duality until I arrive at wisdom or love. Do you see how that works? Gemini seeks out its curiosities in the duality around him or her. And the only thing that ascends us from the perception of duality is wisdom or love. When we perceive duality from the mind, information, perceptions, analysis, look, listen, observe, learn, taking in information and witnessing experiences, the fine details of what we're so curious about, it remains duality in our perception because these are things that are outside of our knowing of the self, familiarity with the self, that we make effort to discover. In discovering it, it is knowledge. It is to know. To experience what it can and can't do. To experience its dark and its light. To experience its good and its bad. It now becomes wisdom. So likewise from the heart, every person who we are curious about, for whatever reason, it's a sense of duality between self and the other person. This person is not me. I'm different. We have different religions, different demographics, different race, different reasons of being here, different aims. It's duality as long as it's knowledge. It remains duality as long as it is knowledge. I'm getting to know this person. I am experiencing this person, active. And as long as that is the status of the relationship, it remains duality. I am me and they are them. But it takes darkness and light to affect consequence to the relationship. It takes good and bad to make consequence to the relationship, to arrive at wisdom. Because through dark and light, through good and bad, of intellectual connections and communications, and relationship connections and communications, we realize a reflection of ourself. And now duality becomes unity through understanding arrived by wisdom. This works along the laws of imply and infer. Imply and infer. It's the chaos, it's the mischief, it's the troubles that contrast with the good fortunes, the surprises, it forms a bigger picture in which you can see yourself through the picture. Relating, in other words, relating. Understanding. Seeing that there's more than what is perceived. And seeing that there's an expansive view beyond first impressions. Gemini is a process, in other words, that evolves from knowledge to wisdom. It is where we transform knowledge into wisdom. It is where we transform connection into love through Gemini. Do we see how this works? Duality meets with unity. It doesn't work if there's not mischief. It doesn't work if darkness cannot meet the light. It doesn't work if good cannot meet the bad. It is the only way to transfer the knowledge into wisdom. It is the only way, and that is experience. Cognitive experience. Cognitive experience simply because connection, not attachment. That's what makes it possible with Gemini, is that Gemini is a detached disposition. If Gemini was not a detached disposition, it could never understand another person. It could never understand anything outside of itself. Attachment is a blinder. You cannot understand who and what you are attached to. The detached, airy, ethereal disposition of Gemini is what guarantees every experience and interaction to eventually evolve to wisdom or love. And that's the point with Gemini. that if we should step outside of the jurisdiction of self, as long as we don't fall into attachments, we are sure to arrive at wisdom through our curiosity of mind, and we are sure to arrive at love through curiosity of heart. And that is where duality dissolves to unity, through the curious impulse of Gemini. Understand. Gemini moves through relationships without the intention to keep or to covet, but with the intention to experience, knowing that through those experiences, self will be greater understood as the other person is understood. And it causes the spark of revelation. So likewise with the childlike mind of Gemini and the curiosity of its world and environment, to engage its environment with curiosity and enthusiasm, not attachment. Curiosity and enthusiasm, not attachment. From the spirit of curiosity, nothing is bad and nothing is good. Judgment doesn't enter, but analysis does. Criticism does. Critical thought. The disagreeable view. Asking what if. Asking why. As it is written, wisdom is the principal thing. With all thy getting, get understanding. That is Gemini. Wisdom is the principal thing. With all thy getting, get understanding. How do we get understanding? You ask questions. You follow the leadership of your curiosity. You trust your curiosities to arrive you at understanding. Gemini is the journalist of life. The journalist of life that will wear any hat, any costume, any attire, any image, speak any language, follow any custom, in order to relate, in order to arrive at the understanding of what's being experienced, in order to extract the wisdom of circumstances so that it can be reported and explained. That is Gemini, the journalist. The journalist goes to the Middle East and she puts on a hijab. Doesn't mean that she's Muslim. No, she's following customs. She speaks Arabic. She follows the ways and traditions of the society. She sees the good and the bad, or the comfortable and the uncomfortable circumstances, the fortunes and misfortunes, the night and the day of the world that she's reporting in. She wouldn't be a journalist if she's only looking at what's so-called good, favorable, pleasurable, tolerable. It's only a story if you get to experience the drama, the chaos, the confusion, the mischief. You can't understand the world that you are in as a journalist without the mischief. You want to move into this neighborhood. It's a nice house. You know there's young people around there, but you only visited the house in the day. That's to know. You know there's a house. You know it's in a beautiful neighborhood. But where does wisdom and understanding come in at? Well, did you visit the house at night? What happens when everybody comes home from work? What happens when the children are not in school? What happens on the weekend? What is this community like? What do the people do? Now you understand the neighborhood. Who lives over there? Who lives over there? What happens when there's a storm? What happens when there's a misfortune? What happens when there's a community catastrophe? What do the people do? Do they pull together? Do they become resourceful? Are they neighborly? At the grocery store, do they greet each other? The curiosity has to be enough to lead you through all of these experiences to arrive at wisdom and understanding. That is Gemini. The third house of evolution. In the natal birth chart, the first house, your personality. The second house, your values and self-esteem, or the things that you realize you value. And the third house, your realization that there are beings outside of yourself who are experiencing the same reality at the same time. That you and your environment are two separate status. And what does it mean if that's the case? You see a bird for the first time, you see a tree for the first time. You met a Chinese kid for the first time. You went to Texas for the first time. You went to Australia for the first time. Curiosity. Curiosity. It leads to wisdom and it leads to love as long as there's no attachment. When there's attachment, you're led to karma. When there's attachment, you're led to undoing. You're led to entrapment of self and others. Oppression. What happens when Uranus gets involved in this? Uranus brings the necessary disruptions that forces the manifestation of wisdom in the theme of the house or sign that it is passing through. So it is disruption that will bring challenge to our ability to establish unity and constant dual natures that we will be introduced to in the themes of life at the Gemini placement of our life. Disruptions will manifest in order to arrive at love, and the dual experiences that we're experiencing with others and how we interact and communicate with them. It's challenging us to arrive at wisdom or love regardless of the disruptions. It's teaching us to find and navigate our way to wisdom and love. Without the disruptions, we will know, but we will not be wise. We are in times of mastery. It's not enough to know. If you should manifest a new reality for your soul's journey, and your curiosity peaks, but Uranus is constantly introducing to you crisis of duality, in which the circumstances are constantly telling you, this has nothing to do with what I'm seeking. This is a contradiction to the world or the life that I've been trying to manifest. This reality or experience is not serving me. It doesn't make sense. Why is this happening? This is not what I asked for. This is not what I was looking for. See, that is called attachment. It's when attachment meets disruption of Uranus. And the attachment is to your fixation to rigid ideals. And an incapability of practicing surrender, acceptance, and transformation. Scorpio. Father God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change. Grant us the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It is a refusal to practice such. And so attachment prevents the power of Gemini. Remaining detached, which can only be done in being present, not clinging to what you wanted to happen or what you preferred to happen, but remaining curious in the present moment of what has happened, of what you are experiencing. Not in a stubborn clench to what you thought you preferred to experience. Allowing that curiosity in the present time to test duality until you arrive at unity. That is, through circumstances to arrive at wisdom, and through relationships to arrive at love. Because Uranus is going to throw mischief. Mischief through circumstance and mischief through relationships that in first glance appears to be in opposition to you, in contradiction to you, and it will tempt you to label something as good or bad, righteous or unrighteous. It will tempt you to attach yourself to limited ideals and the ego, fears, shame, or guilt of the past. It will tempt you to brace yourself for what you fear of the future, thus manifesting control over the situation or control over relationship opportunities. And now you're in a whirlwind of karma because you open attachment instead of remaining present in the detached curiosity of Gemini, which through the disruption of circumstances, you transmute duality into the realization of unity, which then grants you wisdom from the experience of disruption. And in relationship, it is the same to be present, practicing acceptance, detachment, observation, and curiosity that arrives you at the realization of love and unity. That is to see yourself in the other person. That is to see and recognize your own sufferings, your own shadows, your own needs, your own crisis in the reflection of the other person. Love has manifest. The right hand and the left hand have an illusion of opposition. They have an illusion of duality. But the left hand and the right hand are indeed unified. This is to enter the progressive opportunity of Gemini Mars retrograde 2022-2023, in which that 9-month time period polarize the entire earth. Man versus woman, left versus right, conservative versus Republican, so on and so forth. That is duality. But here is the time through Uranus where we are to realize unity. And Uranus has to do so through disruptions. And those disruptions are divine opportunities at innovation. Divine opportunities to see progressive outcomes. To see efficiency in what has manifest. To identify the gift in what was inevitable. The childlike mind will never miss wisdom or love. The childlike mind will arrive at wisdom and love every single time. Gemini represents the two parts of the self called the personality and the soul. The personality and the soul. Through impulses, this is Mars and the Sun, which is nurtured by the Moon. So if you can call to mind the value of Sun, Mars, and Moon conjunction. The personality and the soul may seem to be in contradiction. But you see, the personality asserts the expression of the soul through willpower, through creativity, through initiative, through courage, through action. The personality and the soul may seem to be a duality in the sense that when we talk about the soul, that's spiritual, you would say. And when we talk about the personality, that's secular, you would say. So you would look at the personality as a secular domain, and you will look at the soul as a spiritual domain. These have the illusion of duality. Just as the left hand and the right hand have an illusion of duality. But their function is a unity. A function. Mars and the sun have a function. And that function is that the sun has to express. There's a soul urge that it longs to express. And Mars asserts the will to justify its expressions. Mercury being the ruler of Gemini, the communications, the curiosity, the critical thought, analysis, gathering of facts, information. That is what empowers Mars. That's what gives Mars the reed to perform, thus subjecting its will to the same interest as Mercury, which is wisdom and love. This shows a unity. The first house and the fifth house is unified. The personality has the traits, the characteristics, the aura, the vibration, the demeanor. To assert itself into experiences and relationships. You see how that works? To assert itself into experiences and relationships that manifest the expression of the sun, the heart soul urge, through the fifth house theme or theory. And Gemini is what is behind all of this, because Gemini carries the intention and the curiosity that gives it the breath of life for that to be. The intake of air, oxygen, so that this can be. It is spirit behind that mission. Your personality is designed to engage and to attract. Engage and attract. What you value is a duality, an illusion. Second house. The personality to the second house is a duality. The seventh house is a polarity. What you value is a duality. It appears as a separation or contradiction of the personality, what you value. But the truth is, through what you value, self is realized. Through what you value, your perception of self crystallizes as a wisdom of self-nature. And wisdom of self-nature is wisdom of your neighbor's nature as well. So likewise, the second house of what you value to experience through relationships or through the initiation of the self, first and seventh house, it causes a discovery of what compassion means, of what understanding means, of what tolerance means, forgiveness, sensitivity, understanding. And it arrives us at love. This is the will of Gemini. And as Uranus passes through Gemini, there will be manifest experiences that test our ability to overcome the illusions of duality through the power of detached disposition to arrive at new wisdom. And in relationships, disruptions to our relationships. By the power of Gemini, it will arrive us at an experience with greater love. Uranus represents revelation, and it is through these means that we will have revelation collectively, especially as AI technology, communication-based technology, and relationship-based technologies will be introduced into our world, and it will present challenges in cognitive dissonance, which again manifests from circumstances of perceived duality. Is this right or is this wrong? Is this good or is this bad? As an example, when the internet or the World Wide Web came out, eventually it led to a perception of duality. Is this good or is this a bad thing? According to the consciousness of Gemini, it is neither. Because Gemini is not to judge what it is to understand what it is. Gemini has to move through the dark and the light, illumination and absence of light. It must move through because it is the only route to wisdom and love, fortune and misfortune. So AI technology is going to present for us moral challenges. The Aquarius Pluto expression of relationships, which will go far beyond our traditional understanding, is going to test our ethical and moral compass. Is this right or wrong? Is this good or bad? Gemini is where we do not judge if it is right or wrong, but we analyze it and we report it. We study it and we report it. We experience it and we report it. And in this context specifically of Uranus, it is unavoidable experiences. Not making the excuse of, I'm going to do something that goes totally against my moral compass and justify it. Oh, we're in Gemini Uranus season. No, that is not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying. It is not to ignore the moral compass. What relationship, circumstances, and expressions are going to evolve to, and what AI technology is going to evolve to, it's going to require us to be present with the changes, because the changes are going to be rapid. They're going to be fast. They're going to be too fast to even keep up with. And we're going to have to practice the Gemini consciousness to not fall on the underside of this. Being present with the changes. Arriving at wisdom through detachment and experience. Arriving at love through detachment and experience. I'm not here to control anyone, to possess anyone, to dominate anyone, to project my attachment, fears, shame, and guilt on anyone, my insecurities on anyone. I'm here to experience. We're here to experience. And experience is sufficient to arrive us at love. It's sufficient to arrive us at wisdom. Gemini Uranus points us at revolutionary wisdom, revolutionary love. It points us at innovative wisdom, innovative love. We will be teaching each other that love is not limited, and the route to love is not limited either. That wisdom has no limitations, and our route to wisdom has no limitations either. If we can be present, if we can surrender the attachments, remain curious in the innocence of the mind and heart, the innocence of the heart and the clarity of the mind. We will have wisdom and love in pair. Gemini arrives us at Cancer. Cancer is where we have culture. Cancer is where we have the fulfillment of wisdom, the fulfillment of love. It is where the fulfillment of such takes place, but Gemini is where we got it from. Gemini is where we initiated it at. Gemini is where it began. Gemini is where it transformed into such. And we feed off of that wisdom. We feed off of that love through culture at Cancer. Understand? We nurture ourselves with that wisdom. We nurture ourselves with that love at Cancer. We comfort ourselves with that wisdom and love. We assure ourselves with that wisdom and love at Cancer. We advocate for ourselves with that wisdom and with that love at Cancer. And so likewise, we do the same for others at Cancer. And where it came from was Gemini. Therefore, there is a consistency between Jupiter and Uranus for this reason. The abundance of Jupiter's compassion, love, nurturing, understanding, moral integrity, advocacy, and care. It's being initiated by Gemini Uranus, the pouring in. Our society is about to change drastically through technology, as Uranus and Gemini is a pair that communicates technological advancements of an intellectual kind, intel. And it's going to change the way that we communicate. It's going to change the way that we initiate connections. It's going to change the way that we even find love through others. It's going to change the way that we initiate connections with others. We simply have to remember that attachment, it works against Gemini. We have to overcome these things, attachments. Schedule for your natal birth chart reading consistently to stay aligned and to have clarity about the self or your loved ones. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and thank you for listening.